Unable to even reach the bottom rung of the property market in New Zealand, renting is the main option. But often those homes aren't healthy, and the Green Party says the government needs to introduce a warrant of fitness for rental properties. Here to explain, Green Party MP Chlöe Swarbrick. Good morning.
Morena.
What's so hard? Because the healthy home standards come in, right? So you've got to have a heat pump, you've got to have your insulation, you know. What's so hard about that for renters to get their head around?
Renters currently have the onus on them to go to the tenancy tribunal and drag their landlord or potentially property manager through that process in order to enforce those healthy home standards. A warrant of fitness would front load any of that potential stress and say that, hey, we've given this a licence, it's all good to go. So
every landlord would have to get a licence like they do for their car for their rental property?
A warrant of fitness, yes.
How much would that cost?
So the estimates from the University of Otago have run it at around $150 to $250. And I think when you're talking about that in the context of an average rent in this country of $500 per week, makes a whole lot of sense.
Do you know how much bureaucracy that would create?
Do you know how much bureaucracy it creates when people are having to turn to the tenancy tribunal in order to enforce their rights, let alone risking ruinous relationships with their landlord?
Do you know the proportion of cases won by landlords versus tenants? Overwhelmingly, tenants win the cases.
Yeah, but nonetheless, it can potentially result in
cases, right?
and it can potentially result in those tenants being blacklisted. Thankfully, there was a change which enabled some of those tenants.
Not all tenants are perfect, though, are they?
Well, no, absolutely, but definitely not all landlords are perfect. But actually, what this warrant of fitness would do would mean that from the start there is certification, which would actually prevent the landlord. If you want to talk about a removal of bureaucracy, the landlord wouldn't be being taken to the tenancy tribunal if it was certified off the bat that their home was up to standard.
Would this apply to the government?
It should.
But it doesn't at the moment, does it?
Well, the healthy home standards are delayed at present when it comes to Kianga Order properties.
Targets private landlords, doesn't it?
Well, it should apply to Kianga Order properties as well. So I just want to take this back to high level because it should apply to both.
But are you changing? All right, so you're changing it now. So you're including Housing New Zealand homes as well.
They should be included, absolutely.
Okay, so we've got to change because the thing is, I mean, it's all very well to point the finger at private landlords, but it's actually, you know, Jacinda Ardern is the worst slum landlord in the country.
Okay, look, to put this in context, Kianga Order owns about 56,000 homes, if I'm not correct, off the top of my head. That is around a percentage of all of the housing stock in this country in the rental market. The private landlord market, 30% of homes are owned by people who own between 4 and more than 20.
But what's right? Hang on, we're talking about different things here.
Yeah, look, I'm saying the same standard should apply to people across.
Good. Because the scary thing about some of the reports I've read is that for those who are, and they are the most vulnerable New Zealanders who are living in Kianga Order homes, half reported dampness some or all of the time. This is our state housing stock, 40% visible mould some or all of the time, 14% constant dampness, 16% visible mould all of the time. There's a guy who's living in Wellington in a council flat, Wellington City Council flat I was reading about today. He sleeps with a device on his mouth so he can breathe oxygen through the night. Every week he has to clean it, and it's filthy. He's meant to clean it once every 3 months, according to the... So
it's simply not good enough.
No, it's not.
And look, if you listen to, for example, the Royal College of Australasian Physicians, they'll be telling you that a warrant of fitness should apply to all homes, whether they are Kianga Order or rental properties. Because we know, based on data released yesterday, that since 1993, rental prices, adjusted for inflation, have doubled. But the standard of rental properties has not increased markedly.
Other costs have gone up, though, haven't they?
Yeah.
All right.
But rental properties have also managed to increase by 50%, while wages have only increased by 20% over the past 10 years.
How often do I have to do my warrant?
Well, you could look at doing it every 3 years, as proposed by the University of Otago.
Yeah, and you talk about a cost of $150, but then you're going to end out with, like, every time you take your car to the vehicle warrant place, they send you down the road to get a mechanic. There's always something wrong with it. So the cost is not $150.
This is why we should have independent regulators, or those who are looking at this not from the perspective of how can we make as much money as possible, which is potentially some parts of the problem with regard to the healthy home standards enforcement.
Another upward pressure on rents.
Well, I mean, with regard to rent, Mark, I mean, you're charging rent that's above and beyond the mortgage that you have on the property, right?
Not necessarily. No, not today's
you
price.
Yourself?
No.
Okay, so you're making a loss on your rental properties?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're making a capital gain on your rental properties?
I hope eventually.
So you're doing this out of charity, you're telling me?
No, I'm doing it because I'm providing accommodation for people that need it. in what are some quite nice, comfortable places, I'll make up the shortfall. And eventually,
through capital gain,
when I sell, I'll get a capital gain that will mean everyone wins.
Okay,
Yeah.
but nonetheless,
at the moment, the likelihood of a capital gain has been taken from me because I'm not allowed.
So what's the business sense in
loss. It's called risk and reward.
Okay, so you agree that landlords should be taking on risk when they engage in a business venture of providing homes?
I think you do by nature, because it's a lot of your money that's tied up in it, a lot of your capital that could be spent elsewhere.
Yep.
In terms of what you would call a long-term investment that hopefully pays off at the end of the day.
So why do you think it's that 2/3 of wealth in this country is held in housing?
It's just the way we've always invested in this country. You know why? Because you can leverage. It's a safer thing to leverage, and it's something that the banks will actually lend you against, because you have basically the sticks there that they can see.
Yep.
And if things turn to custard, they can sell. A lot harder for people like myself, mum and dad investor, to get money from the bank, leverage to maximise profits in other forms of investment.
And on that mum and dad investor point, and on the point around, people being in renting for a transient period in their life, I just actually really want to challenge that for a second, because we know 35% of the population rent. We also now know that 30% of those over the age of 65 do not own their own property. This is no longer a transient circumstance for people.
The reality is that there are some people who will just never own property, don't want to own property, and we're never going to own property regardless of the fact prices have gone through the roof.
And surely they deserve a healthy home in the same way that owner-occupiers do.
Yeah, I suppose in an ideal world.
Can
Can I just say, I live in a damp, cold home.
Yep. Well,
do you?
It should be, no, I do not. I'm very privileged to not live in a damp cold.
Can we look at it
A lot of people do.
Because the Green Party always seem to look at things negatively.
No, this is a protection for good landlords, actually, Mark, because it would prevent them from going through the tenancy tribunal.
You talk about 30% on the Converse, she got 70%. That's a damn good hit rate, if you ask me. That's to me sounds like a pretty healthy country.
Well, again, we've got the lowest rates of home ownership in generations, and we also have 3 times, those who live in rental properties are 3 times more likely to live in damp, unhealthy homes. And we're just saying that people across the board, if you want to make renting a viable long-term solution for some people, they deserve to live in healthy homes as well.
Absolutely agree, but don't say that other people don't have a right to actually try to buy a home as well.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that if people are providing houses for others to live in the same way that you'd rent out a car, there should be a warrant of fitness there. There should be expectations that we are treating landlords like adults. They have responsibilities when it comes to providing homes for those renters.
Don't paint everyone with the same
all right.
I'm not painting anyone with the same brush. I think you're perceiving a slight.
Chloe, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Unnecessary victimisation of oneself, I think.
All right. We have to leave it there. Chloe, always appreciate you coming in. I know you two will kiss and make up.
Yeah,
That's probably a weird thing to say. 29